Overseas now, 25 people have been killed and dozens more injured in an attack on Afghanistan's biggest military hospital. Taliban soldiers are guarding the entrance of the hospital in Kabul after Islamic State forces claim responsibility for the blast. The attack adds to the growing list of terrorist incidents since the Taliban took over in August. Joining me live now is our Sky News US contributor Michael Ware. We want to keep Afghanistan front of mind because it's going to be a long journey there and it might not be a good destination. The latest terror attack, what does that tell us about Islamic State's motivation in Afghanistan, Michael?
Well, look, this was a daring and a telling strike in the capital, Kabul, by the Islamic State. It's very clear that they're maintaining intense pressure on the Taliban, because do not forget, the Taliban and the Islamic State are not friends, they are foes. They have different visions and very different interests. And it's in the interests of the Islamic State to undermine the Taliban and to give a sense of instability. So we see this attack on a military hospital, and it involved at least 2 explosions. The first one at the gate, and then as people rushed in, gunmen started flooding the grounds, and then a second bomb detonated. Now, the Taliban say that these Islamic State gunmen didn't make it into the hospital. Witnesses inside say they did. Some even say they went bed to bed executing wounded Taliban fighters. And so the Taliban is going to have trouble managing this. Already, they're downplaying the death count. They're saying maybe 7 people, maybe 10 people died, including some of the attackers. Whereas the hospitals are saying at least 20 have died, and eyewitnesses are saying maybe even more. So this is high-stakes stuff, and it's really testing the Taliban's ability to find its Islamic State enemy, to keep monitoring those enemies and their networks, and their ability to interdict Islamic State operations and to strike back. So, you know, this is just the Islamic State proving we're still out here, we can still make the Taliban look bad, and we're not going away anytime soon.
It's really interesting as well because we haven't heard a lot from Islamic State in the last couple of years, perhaps because of COVID and other reasons. But is Islamic State seeing a vulnerable Afghanistan and perhaps using that as an opportunity to build back their strength again? And does this now beg the question once again, do the West now have an interest in the Taliban surviving in government?
Well, in a weird way, we do, because the Taliban isn't the best we've got there, it's all we've got there. And the only thing going for the West is that in this one particular area, our interests align with the Taliban's. That is to try and erode the capabilities of the Islamic State. And that's going to be a big question, whether they can actually pull that off. Because, look, we saw over recent years, when the West was still there, that we were able to significantly disrupt and deteriorate the Islamic State. They were whittled down. They never disappeared, but they were definitely brought low. Well, now we're seeing defections from Taliban groups or Taliban fighters drifting over to the Islamic State. We're seeing the Islamic State now revel in the relative anarchy and lawlessness. I mean, it's always been that way in Afghanistan, but there's no US presence there to stamp down upon them. So they are flourishing and they are drawing new recruits. So much so, here in the United States, senior military officers have been saying that the Islamic State isn't just reconstituting, but within 6 to 12 months may develop a capacity they currently lack. And that's the capacity to strike out to Western targets. These same military officials say that Al-Qaeda could regain that capability within a year or within less than 2. So look, a lot of troubling news that is represented by this one attack in Kabul.
Yeah, a few truth bombs there from you, Michael. We always thank you for your expertise in this area. Thanks so much. We'll speak soon.